Hi there. This is a Unity specific tutorial on how you can get license key verifications to work in your Unity games. We had a tutorial specific to .NET that we published previously, but since there are some specifics of the Unity platform that need to be taken into account, we've recorded this video as well, where we discuss all those considerations that need to be taken into account. So I'm planning to split this up into two parts. First, we're going to look at the code that needs to be added into your application, as well as all of the necessary parameters. And in the second part, we will also talk about the client SDK. So there are different approaches that can be taken depending on the version of Unity that you're using. So I'm going to spend some time on that as well. But first, let's check how you can get a simple license key verification set up in a Unity game. So I already have a Unity project in place, and I have added the library, and my code is in test. So here's the script that will be launched when we launch this scene. So this is based on the key verification tutorial, which is also going to provide us a link below this video. So the first part is that we need to add all the necessary namespaces. I've already done it here. It's just 3 namespaces: ASKM v3, v3 models, and v3 methods. Now for the second part, I will do it from scratch just to make sure that we understand where all of the parameters come from. So we go back to the Unity specific tutorial. We can just paste the code that's available here, like this. Let's have some formatting. So there are 4 things that need to be changed. The first is the token, the second is the product ID, and it's the license key, and it's also the machine code. We'll talk about this machine code parameter towards the end. And then there's one more thing, it's the RSA Public Key. So we'll focus on the token, product ID, key, license key, and the RSA Public Key. So the first step here is that we need to get the access token. Maybe let's start with the RSA Public Key. I think that's a good start. So we go back to the key verification tutorial and scroll up in the beginning here, and it says where we can find the RSA Public Key. So we are redirected to this quick start guide, and if we scroll down, we have the RSA Public Key. So I'm going to paste it here. It's very important that there are no typos in it, so it's a very good idea to double check that. The second parameter is the access token, or we'll store an auth parameter, but we can just create a new one here like this. There's already an access token on that page, but I would like to show you how you can create it through the dashboard. Although for demo purposes, you can use the one that's provided here. In the dashboard, you can click on your name, you can go to the access token section, create a new access token. We can call it test, very creative. We give it the activate permission. And as you can see, there are a few more parameters you can set. So typically, maybe if you have multiple products, then it's a good idea to have a restriction or to have that kind of constraint based on the product. I'm not going to do it here, but in production, that's a good idea. So the others we can keep by default. So now we have the access token. We paste the access token, and there were 2 more things. It was the product ID and the license key string. So the product ID can be obtained on the product page. So if we go to the product page, if you already have a product, you can click on it, and then you can copy the product ID that's provided here. But if you don't, if you start from scratch, then the idea is as follows. You go to the main page, click and create a new product, give it a very creative name, test maybe 2022, sounds good. You can keep the parameters here by default. It doesn't really matter, at least for now. Then you would get a new product ID here. So let's copy that. And finally, to get the license key, you can go to create new key. We could keep the defaults, but I will set feature 3 to true so we can see how you can obtain this value in the code. You click create, the license is created, we copy the license, and then we paste it here. So that's pretty much it. There's also the machine code parameter, and the reason why I'm not specifying it in this tutorial is because it really depends. So a machine code is the way you define end users. There might be a variety of ways that can be done. So if this is going to be executed on Android or Windows device or Mac computer, there are going to be different ways of computing this machine code. We have a default method that can be used, so we can insert that, get machine code PI. It works on both Linux, Windows, and Macintosh, right? So but then if you have specific hardware, you might need to use a different identifier. So we have everything set up. There is the feature 1 here that's going to be printed out in case the license verification succeeds. I'm going to set this to 3. The reason I'm doing it is because that's the feature that we set. So feature 1 is not of interest because it's disabled. It's the feature 3 that we want to check. So let's try to get this compiled. And I believe if we already have the game running, I hope it's the correct code that we are. That's right. So the message here is true. And if we go back to the code, we can see that we printed out the value of feature 3 and it was true. There are other parameters that you can print as well. And for example, when it will expire, other features, customers, devices that are associated with that license, expiration date. There are even custom variables you can add. So there are different things. One important thing I also want to add here is that if you want to have a restriction on how many end users, for example, devices, or depending on the way you define end users, if you want to have a restriction based on that, then you need to set this maximum number of machines to a value that's greater than 0. So for example, if I set it to 5, and we go back to the Unity console, and I believe we run it like that. So we're supposed to get true as well, assuming it ran. I think it ran, yes. So if we click here, we see that the machine ID has been computed and placed here. So 1 machine has activated out of 5. There are different licensing models you can use, node locking, floating licenses, depending on how you would like it to be set up. So that's the way you can get key verifications to work in Unity. As promised, I wanted to also cover the library and how you can add it into your Unity game. As you can see here, we already have Cryptolens licensing cross-platform. I think if we go to assets folder, let's see if we can get it opened. Yes, here it is, shown Explorer. Go to assets. Here we have the Cryptolens platform, cross-platform DLL. That's the one recommended for Unity. And that's it. And that's the only library we need. But there is a very important thing that needs to be taken into account when you try to add this library. So the library is added so that you can get access to these specific methods. So instead of calling our BBPI directly through an HTTP request, we have this library that abstracts those methods. So you can just call whatever method you need and you will already recognize all the parameters. So to get this library to work, there will be 3 different methods. And it really depends on the version of Unity that you are running. So if we go back to the Unity tutorial again, if you are running a version that's below 2023.16f1 or even earlier, there's no Newtonsoft JSON package added as an internal package. So to get this to work, you would simply just go to our the GitHub page of this project and click on the release. There is the Cryptolens cross-platform zip. You download that, and I'll just show you where you can find the files. You can go to let's pick .NET 4.8. Then you would need to copy these 2 libraries and put them into the assets folder. Now, if you use a newer version of Unity, so let's go back again to the tutorial, then the approach will really depend on if, so Unity after a certain update added an internal package for Newtonsoft JSON, and that's problematic because if you would use the approach that we just described, where you just copy our version of Newtonsoft JSON, then there will be clash in packages. It will detect there are two packages that are the same, so it will complain and won't work. But so an easy solution, if you know that your Unity project, the Unity version, if it targets Newtonsoft JSON 12, then the easiest solution is to just get rid of the let's see where we have the downloads folder here, to just include Cryptolens licensing cross-platform and skip the Newtonsoft JSON DLL. That's going to work for some versions, but then at later point Unity upgraded the Unity package for Newtonsoft JSON to 13. So it will mean that our library, Cryptolens licensing cross-platform, it targets the version 12, but then Unity has an internal package which is version 13, and there will be problems because even if you don't include it, they will complain that the versions of the Newtonsoft JSON library don't correspond to each other because it uses 13 eternally, but then our package depends on version 12. To solve that is actually quite easy. So to get this working, what you need is go to the package project page again. You can download the zip file, showing folder. I did it earlier, so we can see if it will work this time. We go here. So before you can get this up and running, it's important to install Newton's .NET 6 or any other version of .NET so that you can compile these libraries. I think the easiest is to just install .NET 6 or any other later version. That's what I've done on this machine. And so let's go back to the tutorial. What's necessary? So the first part is to locate, we have plenty of folders here. Let's clear it up a bit like this, so we can close this one. The first part is to go to the Cryptolens licensing folder, and then you scroll down to Cryptolens licensing cross-platform, and we open it with Visual Studio Code. So there are 2 things here. The first is that we need to remove these 3 lines. We need to remove signing of the assembly, because otherwise it won't work. Remove those lines. The second part is to, let's see here, if we go back, is to change the version of Unity that's being targeted to 13.0.1. So let's locate that. I think it's over here. Here we go. So this part, as you can see, is referenced as 12.0.3, and Unity will, if Unity uses internal package 13, it's not going to work, but we can fix it quite easily. Just update it like that, and that's it. We can now get this compiled. So let's check. I believe I installed it in PowerShell, so it depends on how you installed the package, or how you installed the .NET on your machine. I think it's CD Cryptolens master 1. We can go to that. Cryptolens master. And we go to CD Cryptolens licensing .NET. I believe it's build, and then we specify they want to build the Cryptolens cross-platform. And assuming I haven't forgotten anything, it should work. While it restores, let's go back to bin, debug, and it seems like it works. It seems like yes, so no errors returned. So in this case, what you would have do now is you would open the same folder and then copy Cryptolens licensing cross-platform and then put it into your assets folder without including the Newtonson JSON. So just to recap what we've talked about today, we talked about the code snippet that you can use for key verifications in Unity. And there's a specific one that needs to be used specifically in Unity that you can find here. We added 3 namespaces, we added the code, and then we looked at 4 parameters, right? I think it was right, it should be correct. So the RSA Public Key, the access token. I showed you how you can create the product and obtain the ID, and also a license key. We also talked about the machine code parameter and how you can set this. And the conclusion, or like the takeaway here, is that if you run this on, if your game is going to be running on Windows, Mac, or Linux, then you can use our pre-built methods for that. If your application is going to be running on different platforms, like on mobile devices, then you have to use a different way of computing the machine code. And we have articles on how that can be done on iOS and on Android. So that's something to keep in mind. We also looked into the way on how you can compile or how you can get our library to work in Unity, how you can include it. And there were 3 different ways. For certain versions of Unity, the older ones, you need to include both our library, Cryptolens licensing cross-platform, and the Newtonson.json. For newer versions of Unity, it will depend on if your Unity version includes Newtonson.json version 12 or if it includes version 13. If it includes version 12, you just need to include the Cryptolens licensing cross-platform DLL, not the and you shouldn't include Newtonson.json. If your version of Unity targets 13, Newtonson.json 13, which will be for the latest versions, or at least at the time this video was recorded, it was the latest version of Newtonson.json that was used in Unity, in the latest version of Unity. Then you need to do, we had a workaround here where we cloned the package, we removed some lines from the project file, we changed the version in the project file to target 13, and then we built the project. So I built it using .NET 6. You can use any other version, it should work. Once that was done, the approach was the same. So we just copy the Cryptolens licensing.cross-platform DLL into the assets folder. So that was a tutorial on how to get license key verifications set up in Unity projects. If you would have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.